Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm excited to talk to all of you guys. I think I'll just start with like a little bit of my background and kind of journey through the sport and then open it up for questions, if that sounds good to you guys. Is that good? And I think the way I've done them is um, past calls is if you guys have questions to ask them in the chat box, and you can ask them at kind of any point, and then I'll be able to get to them kind of when they come up, when they're applicable, or just at the end. So if you have a question, don't hesitate and just type it and ask, and then I will get to it. And you can really ask me anything. I'm an open book. So whether it's about open water or pool swimming or college swimming or recruiting, whatever it is, I'm really happy to kind of share my story with you guys. And I've learned a lot from other swimmers, and so I hope I can be of a little bit of help to you guys. So just really briefly, I grew up in New York, was born outside of the city and lived there until I was 8. And that's really where I got my start in swimming. My parents just wanted us all to be water safe at as young of an age as possible. So that was really their main priority. And so they threw me and my 3 older siblings in the water really when we were like 6 months old. And from as early as I can remember, I just absolutely loved the water. And so I joined our like country club summer league team when I was 3. And my parents didn't even want me to do it. They thought I was so young, but I begged and begged, and I didn't even really know I was racing, but it was just being in the water. I loved it. And so that was kind of my first foray into swimming. And I did that for several years before I joined a year-round team. So I joined my first year-round team when I was 7 or 8, I think. And that was right about when we moved to upstate New York. And that's where I was until throughout high school. And so when I was 7 or 8, I joined a year-round team, but was still only swimming like 3 practices a week. And I was doing other sports as well. So I played soccer, lacrosse, and basketball until I was about 12. And then that's when I just kind of felt like I needed to start focusing on one sport. I just kind of felt like I was being pulled in a lot of directions. So even though I loved all of the sports at that point, it was a pretty easy decision for me. Swimming was always where I felt the happiest and the most at home, and really just what I felt like I knew I wanted to focus on. And so that was when I kind of dropped the other sports and just focused on swimming. I swam for a team called the Syracuse Chargers, like I said, in upstate New York. It was a pretty small club team. We didn't do a ton of yardage. We didn't do doubles. We didn't do anything in the gym or any type of dry land. So I was probably doing like 25 to 30,000 yards a week, really like Monday through Friday practice, once in a while a Saturday morning. Made junior nationals in high school. I think I might have had one senior national cut. I took recruiting trips to Villanova, which is in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, Colgate University, which is a small school in upstate New York, and then Duke University was my final recruiting trip. And that I just fell in love with Duke when I went there, kind of everything about it, the campus, the academics, the team, the campus where it was located, kind of everything. It felt like a really good fit for me. And so I committed to Duke the fall of my senior year of high school. And back then that was really kind of the earliest anyone committed. I know a lot has changed since then. But that was where I committed and went there the following year and absolutely loved my 4 years there. I wouldn't change that for anything. I dropped a lot of time my freshman year of college. I think, of course, I love the coaching staff and they played a huge role in it. And then I also was just adding a lot of volume, and I was adding the gym and dryland and all that kind of stuff. So I dropped over a minute in my short course mile that freshman year. Went to ACCs and NCAAs all 4 years, and my highest finished at NCAAs was 5th in the 1650 my senior year of college. And when I finished that meet, I just felt like I wasn't ready to be done swimming. And that was May of 2000, March of 2011. And I just felt like I wasn't ready to be done. So everyone else in my class, all the other seniors, that was, the end of their career, and they had their spring semester of college. And it wasn't like I was an Olympic hopeful or anything, but I didn't feel like I was ready to be done. I felt like I still had a huge passion for the sport, and I feel like I still had a lot left to give. And so knew I wanted to keep swimming. Didn't really know where. And a girl on my college team, Megan Dwyer, had grown up in Mission Viejo and swam for the Natadors, and told me that she thought it would be a great fit for me. She thought I would love the team and Coach Rose. And so my college coach contacted Coach Rose, and I kind of took a leap of faith and moved out there about a week after graduating from college. And out there was another big leap in volume for me. My first full week out there, we did 100,000 meters, which Coach Rose hates when I tell people, but that was the only time I've ever done that. But
way to go, Coach.
but I loved it. Like, I loved that, the grind of it and the aerobic work. It was definitely probably the toughest week of training I've ever done, but I thrived off of that. And just a few short weeks later, I had been invited to the USA Swimming National Open Water Select Camp. And so that was in June, and I flew out to Florida from California, and just after a few weeks of training with the Natadors, went to that camp where they kind of taught us all the different strategies of open water. A lot of things I didn't know, like drafting and feeding and all that kind of stuff, that sighting that I was really clueless about. And the culmination of that camp, on the last day of the camp, everyone who participated in the camp competed in open water nationals. And so in the 10K, I ended up placing third, which placed me on my first international team. And that was World Championships in Shanghai, China. And so traveled to Shanghai later that summer and won a bronze medal and a gold medal in the individual 5K and the team 5K pursuit. And that kind of just got the ball rolling for me for open water. And really since then, I've kind of juggled the two, and I compete in both open water and pool. I love both of them, and I think it's really helped me to continue to compete in both. I think for one, it definitely keeps things interesting for me. And, I feel like once I do an open water race, I'm ready to kind of go back to the pool. And then once I do a pool competition, I'm ready to get back to an open water race. I do 99% of my training in the pool still, which is definitely what I prefer. Although these past 2 months, I've definitely done probably more open water training than I've done compared to the entire rest of my career, which I think some of you guys in the call have maybe gone into the open water a little bit, which I love to hear. Anyway, so back to, I guess, 10 years ago now. So got into open water. That was my first year being on the national team. That was my first international team, my first international medal. So it really all just kind of happened really fast for me. And when I moved out to California, I'd really only committed to kind of staying through the summer. And it was kind of like a test run for both me and kind of Coach Rose to see if it fit and kind of just to see where it would go. And after that summer, it wasn't even really a discussion or a question. I knew I wanted to continue. I really narrowly missed making the Olympic team in 2012 in open water, and by just a couple seconds in the 10K, which, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, is a 2-hour race. I had a shoulder surgery in 2014, narrowly missed making the 2016 Olympic team. I came fairly close in both open water and pool again. And then won a gold medal in 2017 Worlds in Hungary in the 5K. And then this past summer at World Championships, I qualified for what was going to be the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, and now is the I guess still kind of 2020, but 2021 Tokyo Olympics in the 10K. So I had plans to go to Olympic trials in the pool as well and try to make the pool team in the 1500. Obviously, everything changed very fast. So I am back in the pool now, which has been nice. I'm not sure kind of what the status is there, if you guys are back in pools or not yet. But like you guys know, there's a lot of uncertainty still. We have no idea when we'll be competing or anything like that. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys there. So that's like my journey in a really quick nutshell. But I'd love to kind of go more into depth of, anything specific you guys have questions on. And then if you have any questions for Coach Rose from his perspective, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer as well. or if you guys, want to ask anything.
Trying to read this.
Okay. Should I read this question?
Yeah, go for it.
What was it like to move from a small club in New York to Duke University swimming? So that was definitely a huge change for me. And I think obviously for a lot of reasons. I think just going to college in general is a really big change. I'm definitely a little bit of a homebody. And so I had kind of thought I would stay close to home. And before taking recruiting trips, I thought I would probably go to Colgate or Villanova, which were both a lot closer to where I was from. And then once I took my recruiting trips, I felt this pull towards Duke. And so committed there, but I was definitely really nervous. It was, it's a 12-hour drive, a flight away from home. And so that in and of itself was a little bit nerve-wracking for me. And then I knew that it was going to be a big jump in yardage. I knew I was going to be in the gym and in the weight room, which I had never really done, which was kind of scary, to be honest. But I feel like it was really helpful to go into college kind of already having like a network of people that you knew, just having the swim team. That was huge. And then knowing that all the freshmen are in a really similar boat. Even if they, a lot of my teammates, like one of my teammates came from Germantown Academy. And so she had done a ton of yardage, and going to college was actually a drop in yardage for her, but it was still a change. And so that's something my parents told me, and my siblings who participated in athletics in college as well. Just to remember that everyone is experiencing changes, and to kind of be open and talk about them if you're struggling at all. But I loved it. It was fun for me. It was exciting. It was fun to do doubles and fun to go to the gym and lift and do spin classes. So it was a pretty smooth transition, but I was definitely apprehensive and nervous. Do you want me to read the questions, or do you want to read the questions?
Go for it.
Okay.
My husband, it says, congratulations on being named to USA's 2020 Olympic team. So happy for you. It's awesome. Also, congratulations on amazing and remarkable career. Of all the accomplishments that you have achieved, which ones are you the most proud of?
So I think one that definitely stands out in my mind is 2016 Open Water Nationals. So like I said, so coming off of missing the Olympic team in 2012, I was training really well in 2013. I felt like, and I didn't have a great summer. And so I didn't make international team. And then I had a shoulder surgery in 2014. And then I missed making the Olympic team for open water in 2015, since the qualification is a year earlier. So there were definitely some disappointments in there, and kind of like, I guess, some lower moments. And at 2016 nationals, open water nationals, since the Olympic spot was already claimed for the women, there wasn't necessarily a whole lot like riding on that race in terms of qualifying for a spot. But it was an incredibly competitive race. There were like 8 females in that race who were going to compete who had qualified to compete in the 2016 Rio Olympics. And I ended up winning that race. And so for me, that was really big to kind of prove myself and kind of like fight back from that disappointment, and knowing that in 2 months, all these girls would be in Rio competing in the Olympics and I wouldn't be, and being able to kind of fight through that and have the motivation and the discipline to kind of stay strong throughout that race and prove myself. That's definitely one that really stands out for me. I guess, yeah.
What is your most memorable moment as a swimmer?
There have been a lot, and I would say I definitely have like memorable moments that are memorable for like not the so great reasons, like the disappointments. But to be more positive, definitely my most memorable moment was definitely making the Olympic team this past summer. I've, obviously had a really long journey. And so to finally have that goal come to fruition after 8 years was really, I mean, indescribable. And then kind of to add on to it, my parents and my husband were there, which was really fun to be able to be with them. Coach Rose was there, which was so cool to be able to kind of experience that with him after our journey. And he's been with me through kind of all of that. So to have him there was really special. And then open water world championships and pool world championships were in South Korea. So I actually qualified for the Olympics in South Korea, which is where my older sister was adopted from. And myself nor my parents had ever been there. So that was kind of cool for it to happen that way. And not that I wouldn't have loved to have made the 2012 and 2016 Olympic teams, but it was almost like it was kind of meant to be that's where it happened, I guess. And I know it was really cool for my parents to be able to go back, and they took some extra time and spent some time in Seoul where she was adopted from. So that was obviously really special.
How do you handle the mental aspect of the sport when in the face of disappointing a race?
Yeah, so obviously I've had my fair share of disappointing races in both pool and open water. And I think what I've learned is it's really important to kind of like acknowledge the disappointment and kind of sit with it, and don't try to like shove it away or bury it, because those feelings eventually will manifest in one way or another. And I think it's really important to deal with them. I think it's really important to kind of reflect back on the past season and be honest with yourself with if you gave it your all, what you could have, done better, what you could have worked harder on, and kind of make a promise to yourself to improve upon those things. And I've always tried to use it as motivation too. So like I said, in 2015, after having missed an Olympic team and being disappointed in that, I used that as motivation for 2016. And I wanted to prove myself, and just remembering your goals and remembering that if you're putting in the hard work, eventually those results will show. And it might take longer than you want. And that's really frustrating. I've definitely had spells where I'm training really well and I feel like it just like isn't showing up in my races, but just trusting yourself and trusting your coach that it will come and the work is going to show up eventually.
What advice do you have for the young swimmers to get involved in open water?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So I got my start in open water just like swimming with my dad. So we would vacation every spring in Florida for a couple weeks, and we would vacation in Cape Cod every summer for a couple weeks. And my dad and I would always go for swims in the ocean. For one reason, just because I was like out of the pool and out of training, just to be in the water, but also it was just, we both loved it. It was just kind of something we enjoyed doing together. And so, I mean, they were short, maybe like half a mile or mile swims, but I loved that. And so that was kind of what led me to wanting to try a race competitively. And so I think just the experience and trying it out, and it's something new and different, and just getting comfortable with it. I think in a lot of ways, I wish I had started competitively swimming open water a little bit earlier. I feel like I'm still learning something every single race. And I do think that's like the beauty of open water is you're gonna keep learning every single race you do. But I think just to get involved and try it out and give it a few chances. My very first open water race went terribly. It was in Long Beach, California. So the water was freezing. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't feed. And so I think I got like second to last. I was like borderline hypothermic. And if I had trusted that and never done another open water race, I would have obviously missed out on a lot. So it's a whole different beast than pool swimming. So give it a few chances and yeah, just try it and make it fun. I think open water can be really, really fun. And there are a lot of fun races. My like favorite races are open water miles. So just trying it out and learning and learning the different strategies and drafting and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, the next one, let's see. Why did your parents, does it throw you in the water at a really young age?
Oh, it was really important to them to have us be water safe really young. We grew up like living at the pool at our club in the summers, and so we were constantly around water, and um, they wanted to be sure that if we ever found ourselves in the water without someone nearby, we would be able to at least get to the side and save ourselves as at early of an age as possible. And so they never let us use like water wings or anything like that for that sense false of security. And we could all actually like swim in terms of like saving ourselves before we could walk. So it wasn't like to compete or anything like that. It was really just to become water safe.
Did you have any challenges when you started swimming? When you first started out swimming?
Like little?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, from as young as I can remember, I just like loved it. And from what my parents tell me, like my brothers took like tennis lessons and did that in the summers. And now I'm like bitter that I never did that, but they were like, we couldn't, like we wanted you to, but they couldn't pull me out of the pool. I loved it.
This question, could you go into a little more into your recruiting and what should we do and any suggestions to start with recruiting?
Yeah. So I think first I would just, as much as you can, try to start with a really open mind. I Duke wasn't even on my radar when I started, I guess, like looking at colleges. It was something it was a school my brother brought up when I was already talking to a bunch of other schools. And so have a really open mind. Don't try not to narrow anything out right away. I feel like you don't really know what you want until you can kind of see it or experience it a little bit or talk to the coaches. And for me, I feel like I contacted a lot of coaches and a lot of schools that basically told me, you could be on our intramural team or you could try to walk on, but like, we don't have a spot for you, or we definitely don't have any money for you. And so try not to, if that happens to you, try not to let that get you down too much, and have faith that the right school, will come to you. Also ask the coaches questions. Try to get everything out of them that you want to get out of them. If you go on recruiting trips, ask the swimmers questions. Just try to get all the information you can. I know it's really overwhelming and it's a lot. And I know now swimmers are getting recruited earlier and earlier. And I can imagine that's even more overwhelming, but try to get as much information as you can. Try as much as you can not to get too pressured. I know it's tough, and like I said, kids are making decisions earlier and earlier, but try to just kind of focus on yourself and your path, and trust that will work out. If you have a more specific question, you can ask, but those are kind of, I guess, my general thoughts regarding that.
What were your feelings when the Olympics were postponed, when it was announced?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of emotions. I feel like leading up to the decision, there was definitely a lot of uncertainty. And so kind of having the decision made in one way was a little bit of a relief, just because we knew we weren't going to be able to get in the pool time. And so that was definitely stressful. And so having that decision and knowing that there was no pressure to be in the pool and training really hard, that was a little bit of a relief. Obviously, there was feelings of disappointment. I've been training since September for this July and this August and for the Olympics. And so to kind of, have it postponed for an entire year when I had been planning on retiring this August definitely took a little bit of time to wrap my head around, for sure. But obviously in full support of the decision, and it's what needed to happen. And I'm hopeful that the games next summer will, be even more special.
This next question, what are some walls you've had to overcome as a swimmer? I'm guessing that means mental barriers.
Yeah,
Correct
so
question.
yeah. I think one, I mean, already touched on it a little bit, but coming from like a really small club team to go into a Division I college, I don't think it was necessarily it didn't have to be a wall, but I made it a little bit of a wall in my head. Like I said, I was a little bit apprehensive and kind of doubted myself and if I would be prepared to do that. So that would be a little bit of one. Sorry, my phone's ringing. Shoulder surgery was definitely huge. So from both a physical and mental standpoint, coming leading up to a surgery and coming out of surgery was really, really difficult. I had surgery about 8 months before Olympic trials for open water. And so not only did I have to take 8 weeks out of the water, but when I got back in, it was a really slow, gradual kind of journey back in. And so that was mentally really, really hard. I kind of just wanted to like jump in. I knew that a lot of my competitors were already training and training hard. And so that was super stressful for me. I mean, shoulder surgery would definitely be my toughest one. And then, I mean, this has been a bit of an obstacle in and of itself as well.
This next question basically hits the same thing. What helps you mentally get past a major surgery, a major injury?
Yeah, I think for me, so right after surgery, I was feeling really good. Like I had been in so much pain that just the initial feelings right after the surgery were I was out of pain and so I was really positive for a couple of days. And then after about a week, all I was doing was PT. And so I couldn't even really like get on a bike or anything yet. And so definitely really stressed and anxious, I would say. And I learned that I really had to take it day by day. And that's something that I've kind of taken those lessons from shoulder surgery and carried them over to right now, and just taking it day by day and really just focusing on what I can control. There's with both the surgery and currently kind of everything going on, there's so much out of our control and there's so much uncertainty. And if I let myself like think about those too much or ponder on that, it definitely gives me a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And at the end of the day, it's not going to do anything for me because I can't control it anyway. So for me, just taking it day by day and doing what I can to make myself better that day. So when it was shoulder surgery, it was doing my PT. And when I was able to do dry land, getting on the bike some. When I was able to get back in the water, even though it wasn't the training I wanted to be doing, making sure that I was taking care of my shoulder and just doing things every single day to make myself better. And so that's what I've done these past 2 months as well. Just really take it day by day and focus on what is in my control and try to kind of forget about the rest of the stuff.
What is the best exercise to do out of the pool when you can't swim? What do you feel like is a great way to substitute the swimming?
Yeah, so I think this is different for everyone. Unfortunately, I don't think there's like a perfect alternative to swimming. Swimming's definitely unique in that if you take a while off, you're probably going to feel it when you get back in. But again, that's the same way for everyone. So it's nothing to stress about right now. For me personally, I've been doing the Peloton a lot. So a spin bike, which I really like. In the past, I've also enjoyed running. That kind of bothers my shoulder right now, so I don't do it as much. So for me, really biking in terms of like cardio or aerobic is what I prefer. I've also found jump rope can be super beneficial. And then I try to do a lot of core too. I think that's been really huge for me, working on not just dry land, but core. And I think a lot of strength in the pool kind of stems from that. So making sure you're maintaining that.
Did you ever hit a point or season in your career where you felt you weren't making any improvement or progress? If so, how did you get through that?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had like tough stretches, whether it's a couple weeks, months, not necessarily years. I feel like for a while, I feel like I was on a pretty like constant progression. So from middle school to high school to college out to California, like I was on a really good progression. And then naturally, just getting older, you stop dropping time every single meet. And so there have been plateaus in my career for sure. And there have been also like weeks where I felt like I've just been not where I haven't trained that well. And that really never used to happen to me either. I felt like I've always been a pretty good trainer, and I've loved, like I said, I thrive off that kind of aerobic training. But as I've gotten older, my body just can't do the same things. And so yeah, that's been stressful, but I think kind of like I said earlier, just taking it day by day. And if you have a bad day in the pool, if it's whether it's a practice or a race, just making sure you're giving it your all. So I feel like if I get in the water and I'm in the middle of a workout and it's just not going my way, if I'm not making times or intervals, or I'm not hitting the times I'm supposed to be, I still, even though I'll probably be disappointed, I still want to climb out of the pool after that practice and know that I gave it everything I had. And that's kind of been something I've always thought. And if I'm going to be in the pool for 2 hours training, I'm going to make it worthwhile. Like I'm not just going to get in the pool and kind of slop through the water. So for me, it's just about being the best you can be. And yeah, you're probably going to have plateaus or slumps, but just focusing on the day to day and focusing on your goals and trusting that if you put in the work every single day, those results will eventually show up.
Doing other strokes since you do primary open water and freestyle events?
Not really. So I train like 90% freestyle. I used to in college, I would train IM. So probably 2 days a week I would do IM practices, which I loved. I love that it like broke up the freestyle training a little bit. Now I can't really do butterfly anymore because of my shoulder. And I just don't really do backstroke or breaststroke. So I primarily do freestyle.
Do you have any regrets in your swimming career? If so, why?
I don't think so. I mean, um, I feel like, I considered retiring a couple different times. And really like after 2016, after 2017. And so if anything, I'm grateful because I do feel like that would have been a really big regret. I feel like for a little bit, I was nervous that if I kept swimming and then till 2020 and then missed making Olympic team again, I would have felt like I had like wasted another 4 years. And I'm glad and proud of myself that I didn't kind of give in to that way of thinking and that mentality. And again, I feel like I've said this a bunch, but just kind of reiterating, I told myself that if 2020 came and I did miss making another Olympic team, I could still be really proud of myself for what I had done and the accomplishments I've made. And of course, there would be a disappointment and frustration, but I feel like there would not be that regret of the what if. And I think that's kind of like the worst feeling you can have is the what if. Like, what if I had trained harder, or what if I had pushed it, or what if I had kept going, like what if. And so that's kind of something I've always tried to actively and consciously avoid, is feeling that way.
Well, I know we didn't formally introduce him, but Coach Bill Rose is with us. He coached Ashley for several years. I have a question for him. Coach Rose, what was Ashley like as an athlete coming to you fresh and new, and how did you help her mentally through the rise of her career?
Can you hear me, or do I? Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. It was fun to have her come, especially that first week. It was I felt very badly for her. But we at first were worried about the fact that she had already graduated from college and that she was looking around at different pools or different clubs to train. And when she first came, I tried to talk to her by telling her that indeed it's very important that she come with a good attitude, and the fact that she came here for from serious training, not for a summer program. And the fact we've had this happen before where they come to California from the East Coast or whatever for different reasons. And I just wanted to make sure that she came for that reason. So I said, I need you to come in the next couple of days because we're going to go into this training camp. And so I said, if you'll get on a plane right away, we'll accept you. And then she took a little pause and said, well, I have a problem in that, you see, it's my birthday in a couple of days. And so I've already have plans to go to Florida or whatever with friends. And I said, that's not a very good start, is it? You know, but she came, and the rest is history. And I have to give her a compliment that literally she's been the most consistent and hardest and best trainer and best person I think I've ever coached. So it was just been a pleasure all these years.
Now, I'm just going to ask a question here. I'm going to interrupt the questions for mine. I know that I saw the look on your face, Coach Rose, when Ashley was swimming, and I have a great picture of it as well. What were your feelings when she made the 2020 Olympic team?
I hate to use the word relief, but I mean, I wanted it so badly for her, and obviously I knew how badly she wanted it. And I remember when she made the last turn, she was in 14th place, I think, with like 400 meters to go. And I was so upset with her because she's such a nice girl that when we went around the buoy, she usually says, here, you go first, and I'll, I don't want to cause you any problems. And so she swims way too wide. And I was very upset. I was yelling at the television because I couldn't see it. I knew it was on TV though. And so anyway, she somehow buried her head and got in, and it was just an unbelievable feeling because, like she said, she had all those years of trying, getting very, very close and doing very well along the way, but just missing. And for her to make it after all that time is one of the thrills of my coaching career.
Ashley, what do you do to get motivated before a race? And when training, when you're not motivated, what do you do to get motivated to get up there and train and race?
Yeah, so I think I used to get really, really nervous before races. I still do, but definitely less so. And I feel like I've just kind of learned over the years that racing should be the fun part. You've put in so much work and so many hours to reach your goals, whatever they are, whether it's a best time, whether it's to make a cut, whether it's to make a team, whether it's to beat the person next to you, whatever it is. You put in so many hours and discipline and hard work. And so racing should really be the fun part. And I think that's kind of what I've learned and what I've tried to really like lean into recently. And I think that's helped me a lot. Just making it fun. And of course it matters, and you want to do really, really well. But for me, at least, I know that I compete a lot better and I race a lot better when I'm relaxed and having fun and not super stressed. I think anyone under a lot of stress, you're going to be more tense, which doesn't naturally lead to fast swimming if your muscles are really tense. So, and then I just think of my goals too, and what my goals are, and use that kind of as motivation. Especially like the night before a race, I kind of like to think about those before going to bed and just kind of have them in my head. And then really the morning of the race, I try to almost kind of forget about those and just be relaxed. But again, that's me personally. Some people thrive off of pressure. And so if you are someone that's like that, then lean into that. I think it's really important to just find what works for you. And what I've been able to do throughout my career, and with working with a sports psychologist, is really kind of look back and reflect on the really good races or meets you've had, and the maybe not so good races and meets you've had, and compare them and see kind of what kind of mind space you were in, what you were doing, how you were feeling leading up to those. And if you need to, it can be really helpful to write them down. That's what I did with the sports psychologist, and try to narrow in on what you're doing, how you're feeling, what you're thinking, leading into those really good races or competitions, and then try to replicate those in future ones. And then in terms of what do you do to get motivated to get up and train when you're not motivated? I think you have to have discipline. Sometimes you're not going to be motivated, and I think that's okay. I don't think you should necessarily feel guilty about that. There have definitely been a lot of mornings when my alarm has gone off where I haven't necessarily wanted to jump out of bed and get in the pool. And there have been afternoons when I'm supposed to be heading to practice when I would much rather stay in bed and take a nap. And that's okay, but I think you have to have the discipline to get there and do it. And I think that's what eventually is going to separate the people who reach their goals from the people who don't. It's really just discipline and making yourself get there and get in. And at least for me, I found that most of the time, once I'm there and in the water, and surrounded by teammates and everything, that motivation tends to come back. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you're going to struggle through a practice and struggle the entire practice to find that motivation. But those days especially is where the discipline is, and just really making yourself do it. I think everyone's going to go through days, weeks, months maybe where you're not feeling the most motivated, and that's where you just really have to have discipline.
I'd like you to touch on the 10K race and the strategy that you have to go through during that 2 hours. Going, like it talked about earlier, was the feed station and how unique that is, and falling back and when to charge. And can you explain to the swimmers, especially those who haven't seen it open water, just the strategy that you have to go through during that race?
Yeah, so that's definitely, I'm still learning too. Every open water race is different. And I think I love to have a plan going into a race. And, I had with Coach Rose, we had a plan going into, the race this past summer, but the plan definitely wasn't to be 14th at the last turn to go. And so a lot of times you kind of have to adapt. And that's definitely a huge part of open water that has taken me a lot of getting used to. And honestly, it's something that I'm still getting used to. I'm not like, I like having, I like knowing what I want to do and being in complete control of that. And a lot of times in the pool, you're able to have control of what you're doing, and that is kind of taken away from you in open water. So I personally prefer to lead races. I like having kind of clean water and people not near me and not touching me. And so, but I've had a lot of races where I've led for 9,500 meters, and then I kind of get overtaken at the end. And so I've kind of had to learn to be more comfortable, either more like a little bit towards the back or to the side of a pack. That's something that, has definitely taken several years for me to get a little bit more used to. My general strategy for open water, and I think a lot of open water swimmers would agree, is to stay as comfortable as you can for as long as you can. And that's going to mean different things for different people. Like Jordan Wilimowski, for example, is totally comfortable hanging out at the complete back of a pack for 5K. Whereas if I did that, I would waste so much mental energy and physical energy, probably stressing about catching back up, that I would be gassed by 6K. And so it's different for everyone, but I think for me, it's really important for me to just stay as comfortable as I can, really for as long as I can. And then when someone makes a move, whether that's me or someone else, having enough energy and enough reserves left to be able to, if it's me, break away, or someone else to go with them. And then I think, the same kind of goes with feeding too, trying to stay as comfortable as possible and relaxed as possible. And really making sure that if you're going to stop and take a feed, that you make it worthwhile and you get in what you need to get in, which I'm still learning to, and I don't always do.
Have you ever encountered any marine life while open water swimming?
Jellyfish, yes. I was actually just down at the beach. My parents have a place on the coast of North Carolina, and I was down there a couple weekends ago and did an ocean swim with my husband, and it was the jellyfish that don't sting, but they were like, you were just like, every stroke you took, it was just like swimming through them, which I hate. So jellyfish, definitely. When I was in high school and doing one of the swims in the ocean that I talked about with my dad, this is one that he didn't do with me. So him and my mom were walking on the beach on shore, watching me, and I was probably only like 30 yards out from shore, not far out at all. And all of a sudden I saw my dad like come sprinting into the water, and I had no idea what he was doing, and the lifeguard. And I never saw it, but apparently there was a shark like 3 feet from me. We vacationed on New Smyrna Beach, which is like shark capital of the US. So, but I never saw it. And I've done races in the Cayman Islands, which have been like beautiful with marine life and like beautiful fish and sea turtles, and Hawaii also, the sea turtles are really cool. So I've had really, for the most part, really positive experiences with sea life.
Coach Rose, I'm going to jump back to you. It says, what about athletes that have a potential to become Olympians? What sets them apart from others?
I think, again, her tenacity, that word is very, very important to her. I think she's just so persistent in staying on point to her goals. And she keeps talking about day by day. And I just have to agree with her that she just is the epitome of that. Every day she comes to practice, and whatever we have for her, although we do go back and forth as to what we have for her, she just sits down and she just gets down and does it, and really to the best of her ability. And I can only say that word tenacity is the most important thing that I have noticed about her through the years.
Ashley, I know that you're an hour later, so I'm going to give a final question here. What are your plans after the Olympics?
Yeah, so I guess along with taking it day by day, I've also really always kind of tried to take it like year by year. I feel like in 2012 and in 2016, after missing an Olympic team, like if you had said, okay, but like, you have another shot in 4 years, it would have been like, well, that's so far away. And so for me, it's been a lot easier to just really take it year by year. And so while I've, obviously thought about what I want to do after swimming, I've also really just tried to kind of stay in the moment. And if I've committed to swimming for another year, I'm going to be kind of all into that and completely dedicated to that, I guess for better or for worse. And so even when I thought I was going to retire, after the Olympics this summer, I've thought a little bit about what I wanted to do. I majored in psychology at Duke. And so sports psychology is something that's helped me a lot. And I feel like, that's getting a bit more utilized, but I think there's still a long way for that to go. And I think there's a lot of room kind of in that arena. And it's something that's helped me tremendously in my career. And so I'd love to be able to kind of give back in that way, in kind of in a sports psych realm. But beyond that, there aren't really any like definite plans. I'm excited to start a family with my husband. But yeah, just really trying to kind of, I guess, live in the moment and enjoy swimming while I'm getting to do it. I know I'm so lucky to be able to do what I do and travel the world and compete in races. And so really just trying to kind of live in the moment and take that all in while I can.
Robbie, did you want to ask a question?
No.
Well, all of us here at Iowa Swimming are very grateful to Ashley and also you, Coach Rose, for joining us tonight. Good luck with your training this year. Thank you for all your support of the athletes in United States Swimming, USA Swimming, and good luck next year at the Olympics. We'll all be cheering you on. Everyone say goodbye. Thank you to Ashley and Coach
Real
Rose.
quick, Ashley, will you be there at trials?
Pool trials?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Many of us will probably be over there. We'll be cheering for you.
Awesome. Thanks. I know. I hope you guys all get back in the pool soon.
Thank you.
Yes.